Welcome to Buckets, coming to you live from the Tommy John Home Studios. I'm Matt Moore, senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Joe Dellera at Joe Dellera on Twitter and the Action Network app, and Jim Turvey of Roto Grinders at Turvey Bets on Twitter and in the Action Network app. This is your Best Bets episode for Monday, November 25th in the association. We will give you best bets. Hope your pre-holiday weekend was great. Hope you have great plans for the holiday. Hope you're looking forward to seeing family and friends and that you're not all nervous and that you're not nervously keeping an eye on exactly how much liquor you have left. I hope everything's going to go great for you during this holiday season. I personally I'm the cook. I'm the chef in the house. So I've got the whole big spread planned, but that's not going to stop us from doing best bets and from betting on the NBA Cup, which is what we're going to talk about.
Well, Matt, now that you went down that alleyway, we got to ask what your specialty is and what your favorite part of the meal is. So the favorite part that you're best at, and then what's your favorite part to eat?
Your best.
Okay, all right. Here's the menu. We usually don't do the chitty chat. Hopefully Matt Mitchell is too stoned on pre-turkey or something. Some pre-Thanksgiving food. So I'm making Cornish hens. I'm going to sous vide them for about 4 hours and then finish them in the oven with a honey and seasoning crisping. We're doing homemade mac and cheese, which I make with quesadilla, Colby Jack, and a little bit of Gouda, just like the right amount of Gouda. Green bean casserole for sure. My brother-in-law is making his patented cranberry sauce, which is slow cooked with ginger and pear. It is the best cranberry sauce I've ever had in my life. We're doing my wife's favorite cheesy potatoes that her mom always fixes for her. I'm doing a wild rice because wild rice and Cornish hens go really well together. And good old just open up a can of corn and popping it in a pot and cook and warming it up. My mother-in-law is making a pumpkin pie, a pecan pie, and a fruit tart. And I am making a dish called cherry salad, which is cherry filling with Cool Whip and pineapple and walnuts. It's awesome.
You got an extra spot at that table?
That's great.
Come on by, man. Come on by. Always, if your bets tonight hit, that's
okay. Deal.
Yeah, you gotta hit your best bet. We will do best bets. We'll do the whole rundown, but we're gonna start tonight by talking about the NBA Cup. Because we're sickos for the Cup here. We are just absolute sickos. We're going to go group by group. And we're going to try and lay this out. So there are 3 nights left in... 3 nights or 4 nights? 3 nights? 3 nights. 3 nights, I think.
Yeah. Three max, I think.
They're not ending on Friday. They're ending on Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
At the point that we're recording this for the future Jays, there is, in my opinion, there is still a lot that we don't know. There are some things that we can project forward. You're going to hear Joe talking a lot about shit that he thinks you should have bet last week or the week before because that's where he's at in his life. But there's still value to be found, and we'll try and identify that for you. As a reminder, so I don't want to assume you know how this works. All the teams play their group play games. You can win the group. They have odds now. They have very generously provided us with odds in the market to make the quarterfinals, which means that you make the knockout stage, the semifinals, and the finals, and to win the whole thing. And there's Cup MVP, which is my favorite position. And oh my God, do I love the spot that we've built here. So we'll talk about that, but we will also give you bets to make right now as we go through this. We're going to go group by group. And so we're going to start in the Eastern Conference right at the top, and we're going to talk about East Group A. There's only 2 teams in contention to win the thing. The Sixers are -9. They're dead. They're roadkill. The Nets are -16. If they had won that game versus the Sixers, it would have been a little interesting, but not very. Hornets are out. They're 0-2. It's done. So it's down to Orlando Magic and the New York Knicks. Point differential is your second tiebreaker after head-to-head. That matters for getting the wild card spot. There's 1 wild card spot in each conference. The Knicks are +14. The Magic are +37. The Knicks, in point differential, the Knicks play the Hornets, and then they finish at home versus Orlando. That's a huge game. Mm-hmm. The Magic are at the Nets, and then they're at the Knicks. So they have 2 road games to go. And while the Magic after I was like, hey, you know what? The Magic haven't won a road game in 6 months. And then they won in Phoenix and in LA. So that was fun for me. But Magic have a 23-point lead in point differential, but that's not going to matter for group if the Knicks win outright in the last game of the group. So you kind of basically have a money line position in the futures market. Like, we already know what the odds of that is going to be, because you have to assume the Magic are going to beat the Nets, and you have to expect the Knicks to beat the Hornets. The Knicks are minus 300 to win the group. Magic are plus 240. I'm using numbers over at DraftKings. Joe, I'll start with you, New York Knicks resident sicko. What's the best way to play this group?
So I mean, I think that Orlando is probably the best bet. Like, the numbers, I think, just wrong to a degree, because right now I think the market is assuming that Paolo won't play, and based on the timeline that they even said for Paolo, it's possible that he comes back for this, right? Which is it kind of creates like an interesting scenario, like a little Ewing theory, right? Because they've been so good without him now. It's like, does it bringing him back like create a little bit of a problem? Either way, I think that if you bet Orlando to win the group, you're getting a number that's not going. I think it's just a better number than what the money line price is probably going to be. Like, I don't think that New York is going to be like an 8-point favorite in this game. Or so, like, or roughly, I guess, right? So to me, I think that that's probably an angle. Alternatively, I don't hate betting Orlando to even, like, it's pretty heavy juice, but you can bet Orlando to qualify for the Cup quarterfinals, and they're minus 250. It's a lot of juice that, like, to have to drink, right? Even at that number. But part of my thought process is that they're so high in point differential that they're going to probably beat Brooklyn, and that's going to increase that. And when we look at these wild card numbers, they're like in first by margin. Like, it's a huge margin. Like, they're up 11 on Milwaukee. Milwaukee might win their group anyway. And then the next closest is like the Knicks, the Celtics, the Cavs, the Heat, and they're all like plus 13, 14, 15, whatever. So I think that, like, it's possible Orlando, even if they lose to New York, their point differential is going to be so high, unless New York blows them out, which I don't think would really happen just based on the style that they play. It's a little bit slower, defensive battle. I think it's hard to blow them out. I think it's highly probable that they get through to the next round one way or the other.
Okay. All right. Jim, I'll go to you first on this.
Well, I'm curious. You might be similar to me. There are very few times that us future Jays do not align. This is one time that I don't fully align. I actually wish I could bet the inverse and bet Orlando to not qualify, and for a couple of reasons here. So the first, I actually, it was you, I think, Matt, who said you have to assume that Orlando beats Brooklyn. I just turned off my iPad. Brooklyn just went into Sacramento and won. Brooklyn is like an annoyingly decent team. Yes. And, Joe brought up the Paolo coming back. I think you can cut it almost either way. Like, without Paolo, they've been very solid, and Franz has been absolutely amazing. He's now the favorite for most improved player, but they don't have like the type of ceiling to run away and hide from a Brooklyn Nets type team. And if he comes back, I could totally see that kind of junking up their offensive system for a little bit. And this Nets team, honestly, is like pretty decent. So I don't think that is a runaway by any stretch. And so even if we say that that's a win, but a close Magic win, they're up to like plus 40. Then they've got that game in New York. That's going to be a very difficult game. If we say even, Knicks by 8 something, now we're sitting on Magic by, plus 32. So right now the Cavs are at plus 15. They have the Hawks, my beloved Hawks, but I think they're going to take care of business there. And, maybe if we're up to like 5, we're looking at plus 20. That's looking at about 10 points to make up with that final game hosting Washington. That's like the dream spot for Cleveland to just absolutely run up the score and make up that point differential, while on the other hand, Orlando's having to go into New York. You talked a bit about the road struggles with a New York team that knows that basically that it's going to be the head-to-head tiebreaker right there. So they can't lose that and, sneak ahead of them some other way. So I actually think that Orlando, I'd be a little bit nervous fully backing them. I really think this is a great position for the Knicks. And I would look to be like, if some steam comes in on the Magic against the Nets in terms of people thinking like, oh, they have, the bigger motivation. This Nets team doesn't really seem to like, they have none of the quote unquote motivation this season, and they keep winning and or covering games. I might be intrigued by that Nets line in general. And I think I think I'm probably sitting off of betting this group this second, but I'd be a little bit nervous about laying juice on Orlando right now.
Yeah, I think you talked me out of it. I think that does make a lot of sense, the points that you're raising, especially the road struggle. So like, even though I think the number like in a head-to-head against New York, because I think they're probably pricing this almost as like, it's almost like they're pricing it like a money line, but there's a little bit more added variance in here for Orlando. But like, I think the way you're kind of saying it, which is probably going to take us to a different group, is basically that you think that there's better value on betting on some other team to qualify or something.
Yeah, I don't want either of them. We gave out Towns to win the cup group, and I reluctantly and in very self-loathing terms bet that the day after. And like, I'm glad to have that bet. I'm glad to have that bet in the portfolio. I don't really want anything further. The Paolo coming back thing, I do not like. The worst case for me is like the Magic have won their group and they're headed to, or like they're going into that game versus the Knicks. It's like, this is for the cup and they're going to have Paolo back. I will, if it's the first game with Paolo back, I will hammer the Knicks in that game.
Yeah, you're going to get a number. You're going to get a better number. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that. It's actually just that the first time that you have to get, you've been playing one way and you're comfortable playing that way. And now there's this other thing. And now everything's different. Yeah. The mechanisms, the initiation, the sets, the plays, all of it. Communication on defense, the whole thing changes. Yeah. And it messes with teams for like a little bit. And so I don't want either of these teams. I'll also say this, that like on the Knicks side, if they do lose to the Magic, and let's say that they only lose by like 4, okay? And let's say that they're playing Charlotte, they should win that by double digits. Let's give them 10 there. So plus 10, 24. So they're plus 20. There's like a world of scenarios where another team obliterates them for the wild card. Yeah. So, I agree. All this is to say that I don't think that this is the group you want to get money on. I don't think that this thing, like, do I think that Orlando should be plus 240 here? Probably a little heavy, but I'm also not like, I really want Orlando here. So let's go to Group B. Group B is, we got Pistons plus 140, Bucks plus 160, and the Heat bringing up the rear at plus 285. In that group, the Bucks play both of these teams. They play the Heat and the Pistons. The Pistons play the Pacers, then the Bucks, and the Heat play the Bucks and then the Raptors. Heat lost to Detroit. So Tuesday, or whenever they play Milwaukee, becomes like a must-win. Like that's a must-win for Miami's hopes. I want to pause real quick and give you some insight on from the motivation perspective, because that's been something we've talked a lot about on all of our shows. And there is kind of this nebulous, like, do they want it? Do they not want it? Here is what I have heard. I have heard that last year players were like, it's like a tournament thing. And this is very normal for players to not like pay any attention and have no idea what's going on because their lives are busy. Like they practice and they do these types of things, and then they do their extracurricular activities that they get to do because they make millions of dollars, and then they don't have time to, they're not like online researching the NBA Cup, right? But this year, what I've heard is I have heard reporters being asked by players, hey, can you explain the tiebreaker system? And being like, and I've heard the phrase like, this is serious business. This is $500,000.
Yeah.
Like they're aware of it now. So I do think that is changing mechanics. I think if you lose the first 2 games, you're whatever, right? If you lose one, you're kind of like, all right, we're probably not going to win.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the motivational fact. Like I do think the players are much more aware of like, wait, how much? I'm sorry. And now that that's changing a little bit of the equation on them. So Detroit's plus 4 because they won in overtime. They have the win over the Heat, but the Heat are up in point differential at plus 13. That matters if there's a 3-way tie. Bucks are plus 26. I will go ahead and lead off the conversation here, Joe, by letting people know that I did bet and log in the Action Network app. Giannis Antetokounmpo, MVP of the Cup group right now, is 17-1. What the fuck is that number?
Yeah.
Because They have a great point differential. They have, like, they're going to be favorites in both of these games. They've played better over the last 10 days. We talked about the defense actually being surprisingly decent. They are not a great team, but they are a good team. And Giannis is a monster right now. Like, he is tearing through people. So at 17-1, that has to be it, because there are a lot of teams that we're going to talk about. Like, we talked about Orlando. I don't want, like, as good as I think Orlando is, and I think that they're, like, live to win the cup. I'm not like, yeah, I could see them beating the Lakers or the Warriors or these teams in the finals. I really don't. I don't see that. But the Bucks, I absolutely do seeing, like, they made the semis last year and got hit with that Pacers matchup. Was a nightmare for them, but they were good enough last year to win the thing. So Giannis at 17-1, that is a preposterous number, and that is absolutely my best cup bet, is Giannis to win Cup MVP.
Yeah, I'm 100% really in alignment with you. I actually bet and logged in the app too. The Bucks to win at 60. I found a 16-1 for them to win. So I was like, I didn't feel like the delta between that and Giannis was like worth just only going with Giannis. But I'm also seeing it like the Milwaukee as low as like 8-1 to win. That's if that's what's available to you, then you should bet Giannis. Like, but if it's like a $1 difference, then like you should bet the Bucks to win, because on the off chance that like Dame does Dame things, right? But I agree. Like, Milwaukee looks so much better over the last 2 weeks. They're 6-2 with a plus 5.4 point differential. So like they're like a dramatically different team. Suddenly things are starting to click, and there are going to be very few matchups based on like, when you're looking at these standings, you're looking at the teams that are, in first or like probably going to get through. There's a pretty strong scenario that, once again, Giannis is the best player on the floor in every single matchup throughout the rest of the tournament. And that, in this style, like, pays dividends, because you just know, like, we have the best player and it's one game. Like, it's not a series. It's not something that you can scheme and you can throw something different. Like, the coaches maybe will guess a little bit and try to like maybe put in a couple extra plays, like, because they want to win at that point if they're in like the playoff area or the knockout stage. But Giannis is so good, and a lot of these teams that are going through don't really have a great matchup to deal with him anyway.
So like a good comparison for this is at DraftKings, the Bucks are 16-1 to win the cup. The Mavericks are 12-1. The Mavericks are, in my opinion, very unlikely to win the group.
Yeah.
And then, like,
no, they can't. They can't.
Oh yeah, the Warriors already clinched it. They can't win the group. Yeah, they are very likely to win the wild card, because they are plus 41, which is a very good position. But also, like, look, they're 2-1. If Memphis pulls off a win, that's it. If they drop to 2-2, we're done. Like, they want the wild card's gonna be 3-1. So the fact that the Mavericks are 12-1 and the Bucks are 16-1, that makes zero sense.
Yeah,
that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm pretty aligned. I'm super aligned with you guys on the Bucks love here. And actually, I had two best bets for futures from the cup, and Bucks 6 plus plus 1600 was one of the best bets I have. I very much like the ceiling play here for them. But there's another group. I mean, and I'll just second everything you guys said, so we don't have to waste time with me literally repeating it. The other team I want to look at in this group, though, is, and what's interesting here is you can really price things around. I was looking at the group numbers to win the group at DraftKings and got plus 265 for the Heat, and it kind of, that alone got me interested. Then I shopped it around, and so you can find a plus 410 out there. Sure. I'm really interested in the Heat plus 410 to win the group.
Where's the 410?
What's that?
Where's the 410?
It's at FanDuel, and you can get plus 400 at BetMGM. So it seems like DraftKings is actually the one that is the lowest on them, and actually you can do pretty well by going to Miami side of things. So they get to host Milwaukee. I think they'll likely be a very small favorite or very small underdog. That will be kind of a coin toss game. But what's interesting is they then get the really shitty team to beat up on in the final game of this, in case if we get a bunch of 3-1 teams, potentially, if they're able to beat Milwaukee and Detroit is able to win, they'll either have, so if they beat Milwaukee, they'll either have the head-to-head direct, if it's just the two of them, or if Detroit is able to win, then they'll have a really good chance to run up point differential in that final game of the season. Jimmy Butler's back. On the flip side of the coin, I'm going to be rooting for Detroit because we have a really good before the cup number on them. So I'll still be rooting for them. That'll be a great hit. But I really don't like the situation for them. With Cade out right now, he's doubtful for Monday. He might be able to return by the end of this, but I really don't think they should be the favorites in this group. I'm kind of baffled by how they're, if you shop around, you can get a longer number for the Bucks than you can for the Pistons. So I think it's kind of crazy and why we all like the Bucks. But I even think they should be closer to the Heat, and getting the Heat at plus 410 compared to like a 140 number on the Pistons right now. Even if you don't have a Detroit future, I really think that Miami is the team either to play to win the group, or because they also do get that chance to run up the score in their final game of the cup first round, like kind of qualifier here. You could bet them just to get through and qualify. I don't like their ceiling nearly as much. I don't think that I want to bet them to be, reaching the final or winning the final.
Yeah.
But that 410 to win the group, when really it's kind of a coin flip in that game with Milwaukee, where they get to be at home and then they get the really crummy team at in the final game. I think this Miami team is actually pretty interesting right now. I'm never high on Miami, so that tells me that this number is a very good looking number, because I'm not usually looking to bet them, to be honest.
Yeah, well, you can also you'll know where that's going immediately, because the game is they play Milwaukee next, so like you'll know where you're looking at it. Like you don't have you're not guessing on some of like the added variance, basically, where you're saying there's a game in between and then this is the last game. It's like, no, both of these teams are playing each other and they're the two teams that I'm trying to pick in this group.
And it's basically going to be a coin flip. If unless there's players missing, that should be basically a coin flip.
And the thing is too, like, you don't have to lose both, because if you bet Miami to win, even if let's say they beat Milwaukee by like 1, Milwaukee could still advance because like their point differential is so good. So it really just comes down to like the fact that like they don't seem like they could both win, but like it's possible that they could.
They very much still can. So and it's a numbers thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a plus 410 number that just probably shouldn't be a plus 410 number.
So Bucks are plus 100 at FanDuel and plus 160 at DraftKings.
Yeah, there's some big differences in shopping these around. That's kind of crazy.
Right. So, yeah, I actually think that should probably be our best bet for this Group B is
Bucks and Heat.
Is Bucks and Heat to win the group, because I ran the numbers, and based on the implieds, that comes out at only minus 138. A 58% implied.
Yeah, because that's the way to bet. Like when we were talking about Orlando in the last group, it's like sort of similar to saying like it's not going to be them, or like
I would give Detroit with a plus 4 point differential. I would give them like a 25% chance.
Yeah.
And so if we're looking at 58% implied versus a 25 or a 75% implied, if we use that number, that's got to be it. It's Bucks.
I think we absolutely lock that in as the group the group best bet,
because the Group B best bet is Bucks or Heat.
They would have to
but shop
they would shop. They'd have to beat they'd have to hope that Milwaukee beats Miami essentially, and then they have to beat Milwaukee. Like I don't like that.
No.
I don't love that.
I mean, look, it'd be a great story, and it's like, if you tell me on any random night that the Pistons could knock off the Bucks, I'd be like, absolutely 100%. Like, that team is tough. That team is tough, and they're playing really well, and I like the way that they're playing. Would you have them favored? Fuck no. So, and I can run those numbers, but yeah. All right, so let's go to Group C, aka Joe's victory lap here, as Joe has been like, what was the number last week on Celtics?
Plus 350.
It's plus 350. Insane. It's minus 105 now.
Yeah, it was insane. It was an insane number.
Instead of talking about a dead number nobody can do anything with, I will still say that this is I just think that I'd like just bet the minus 105. This to me reminds me so much of of last year when we got to the second round, and I was able to bet Boston to win the title at lower numbers on the advance lines for the conference finals, and like to win like all these types of things. This is what that feels like to me, where I'm like, this should not be minus 105. This should be closer to minus 180 or higher.
It doesn't make any sense. It literally doesn't make any sense. Like all you need here is Boston to beat Chicago and then Cleveland to win out. Like, you're looking at numbers that are probably going to be like, I don't know what, minus 300 for these, like, at least for Boston against Chicago. Cleveland versus Atlanta is probably a little bit more toss-up-y, but Cleveland versus Washington, they're going to be huge favorites.
I was trying to see if I could quickly look at what I would have the Cleveland Atlanta game, because that one intrigues me just because of my Atlanta-ness. But I do think I think I want to stay away from this one as well. But I wouldn't hate doing the I couldn't do it real quick. Doing the Boston number, but I followed Joe last week, not to talk about the dead number. Definitely don't add to a position. I think if you got it, definitely don't feel a need to add. And I don't think I would bet it at this week, because there are a couple of variables you're bringing in.
Tell me.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet the 105 minus 105. I don't think, because I think you're bringing in multiple variables. You're bringing in. We know Boston can be a weird team at times. We know Atlanta can definitely be a weird high ceiling team at times.
Yeah, but
so I think it's too many of those for me, even if it's a good number play.
So the concern here is Atlanta beating Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. That's it. So, if you're a normal person who doesn't think the Hawks are good,
what about Chicago beating Boston? You don't think that's that all in Chicago? You don't think that's at all viable?
I just don't think I don't think the number is worth
a Chicago team that takes tons and tons of threes. That's the variance.
Yeah.
Galore,
yeah. Okay.
Scary time.
The Chicago argument is actually better than the Hawks one.
I think, though, if you were looking at this group, I would want a Donovan Mitchell MVP ticket now. I think that's what I think I would be interested in, that, because you assume my assumption it's the heck with Boston right now, because in the event that Boston loses to Chicago, the Cavs control their destiny to advance, because they still have the head-to-head against Atlanta. So if they beat Atlanta and they beat Washington, then they're tied 3-1, or no, they would just win. They would just go past Atlanta. Yeah. So they control their destiny that way. Then even in the three-way, there could be some crazy tiebreakers then, because then you might have a whole group that's tied at 2-2. But Mitchell's a guy that can
actually okay. Hang on. Yeah. I want to go down that road. I want to go down that road, because Cleveland losing to Atlanta.
No, Cleveland has to beat Atlanta, and then they have to lose to Washington, I think.
Okay. Because otherwise Atlanta goes to 3-1.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be
so
something.
Cleveland beating Atlanta seems like a likely outcome. The Bulls knocking off the Celtics does not seem incomprehensible. Oh, but I just can't get. No, I'm sorry. Washington beating Cleveland is not a thing.
What's the Bulls number? Do we have a Bulls number? Oh, it's only
21. It's not long enough, honestly.
I bet that was one of my bets before the tournament, because I was I wanted the variance play, but then unfortunately they got smacked by the Cavs. But
they're actually 20-1 at FanDuel. I don't think I would bet it, but
it's not long enough. Yeah.
I mean, they're hanging around thanks to being able to play Atlanta. I bet the Atlanta Hawks in that game. I want to remind everybody I gave that as a best bet on this show. That I bet the Atlanta fucking Hawks.
Can't do that.
So I do want to take this a step further, though. Okay. Because I hear you on. All right, there's ways that this doesn't happen. There is almost no way with the Boston Celtics at plus 14. I guess there is a scenario because of if the Group B stuff. The reason I bring this up is at DraftKings, to make the quarterfinals, the Celtics are minus 175. Okay, so just to make the knockout round is minus 175. So either they win the group or they get the wild card.
I think it's a bad number. It's bad as in it's not worth it at minus 175.
I'm not arguing that.
Yeah.
But my follow up then is, if you tell me that the Celtics are in the knockout round, who are the teams that we think are coming out of this that can beat them? And
I guess it would have
West
to be
side. I think there's a lot of teams.
I think the Bucks and the Knicks. are the only
Okay.
teams, I think.
Okay. So like you watched opening night and your conclusion is that the New York Knicks can beat the Boston Celtics. That's with motivation.
Yeah, I mean, it was opening night. Like
Sure.
that was not like super surprising. Like
Okay. All right. It would be in New York, so that's kind of interesting. But they are also like they're favored because of all the permutations. I just don't know that there's anybody else that we would want. So then it like looks at like just to qualify for the final is plus 250. Because like I don't want Tatum or Brown for MVP.
Yeah, they're a tough team to bet because the number's always so short. They're so spread out talent wise. It's like how we didn't get to them last year.
Let's leave it alone, and we'll mechanical parlay it. We'll just do the money line and roll it over every single round. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
And then I'll say that, and we'll talk ourselves into a dog because that's what we do on this show.
Yes.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
Let's go to the West, and let's take a look at Group A. Rockets are absolutely demolishing. I actually don't think that we actually have to talk about this group. Well, I guess we do. Rockets are minus 115. This is DraftKings. Minus 115. Wolves plus 125. Clippers 13-1. Blazers 28-1. Kings 60-1. We actually have all of the teams available in this one. The Rockets are 2-0 with a plus 49 point differential. So I don't think they're going to lose a three-way tie. They have wins over the Clippers in Portland, but they play Minnesota and Sacramento. The reason I'll say this, I don't want any part of this because I think the Rockets are going to beat Minnesota, and then we're done. Because with point differential and the other one, I guess the argument would be, and with the Kings 0-2, it doesn't matter if the Kings beat them in the final game. I guess theoretically we could wind up with a three-way tiebreaker with the Clippers and the Wolves, maybe.
No, if they beat the Wolves, then it won't matter. Yeah, you're right. You're right. If they beat Minnesota, it doesn't matter.
It's over. Right. Yeah.
So, like, I think the Rockets are going to beat Minnesota. I'm going to bet them. They're at Minnesota. I will bet them as a money line dog in that game. Like,
yeah,
I'm giving out my best bet right now for that day. I think that's happening. But Joe, when you look at this group and the value, what do you think?
I think it's the Rockets or nothing. And I think that even honestly, like the minus 130 still isn't offensive to me. Like I think you could get down on that, but I think I would just rather take them on a game to game basis. Like I think I want to see what the line is against Minnesota, and maybe just bet that. Because maybe like if there's an injury that pops up, like who knows? Like I just don't. I think I can bet that on a game to game basis. Or if they lose that game, there might be another scenario where I can say like, all right, well, there's a different permutation that I can bet to get them to win the division anyway.
Okay, Jim, your thoughts?
You guys said it all well. I agree. That's Rockets here. I will welcome an Emirates Cup onto Rockets Island with open arms this year if it comes that way.
30-1 to win MVP. Would you?
Yeah, I'll say this. That's the catch here. Yeah. I hate every Rockets Cup future.
Yep.
Except for group. I think they get out of the group and then it's like, uh-oh.
It's like, why are we here?
I think that they are very legit, but I am with you in that I don't want to. I think I gave out a Şengün like 50-1. And at that point, I'm intrigued. And Şengün is the one guy who I do think has some value, but I do think that, especially the way we're seeing the West play out, I think it's going to be big dogs. There's not going to be really room for the Rockets there.
I wish I could bet, because I'm a sicko. I wish I could bet exact outcome. Because I want
round of elimination.
I want Rockets to lose in the semis. They win the home game. Rockets crowd at Toyota Center. The Terror Twins, like one of these teams wanders in there and just gets ripped to shreds by how intense the Rockets are, and then they go to Vegas and then like Anthony Davis has 42 points. Right. Yeah. That to me seems like it. The Rockets to make the semis is it's only plus 185.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Before we move on here, a quick announcement. Action Network is running back our annual Black Friday sale, offering our best prices of the year on a year-long Action Pro subscription. So if you still aren't a Pro subscriber, visit actionnetwork.com/Black Friday to get $40 off a year of Pro and receive instant access to all the picks and projections from our guys, Colin, Calabrese, the whole Action Network team, as well as instant picks from guys like Brandon Anderson. That's actionnetwork.com/Black Friday for the best price of the year on Action Pro. Okay, let's go to Group B. Lakers are 2-0, Thunder are 1-1, Spurs are 1-1. Lakers have wins over Spurs and the Jazz. The Lakers play at the Suns, and then they're home versus OKC. OKC is at the Lakers and then home for Utah. The Thunder have a loss to the Spurs. The Spurs have a loss to the Lakers and a win versus the Thunder. I have an Anthony Davis MVP ticket, and I'm good. But if we're betting it right now, odds for the group, and I still think, let's see, hang on, let me look at the number. Anthony Davis is still 25-1. That's preposterous.
That's not right. Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. Nikola Jokic once again dragged his useless ass up and down the floor on Saturday night in Los Angeles. And at some point, Anthony Davis should probably have some level of professional pride and not look like Charlie Brown. Like, there was a play where Jokic literally sagged 5 feet off of him and was like, do what you want, man. And Davis was like, Kobe! And just shot an unnecessary fadeaway and missed it again. And Jokic caught it and then threw another outlet pass for an assist.
The good
and
news
Davis
is
did
that
the Charlie Brown meme from Arrested Development. Doo, 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 doo. Like, just come on, man. But they will not face the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Cup.
Yep.
And Davis has been awesome this year and very consistent. 25-1 is the best bet. Still, I already have it, but you should I still think Giannis and Davis, with one more name we'll get to, is still a really good position to have. Jim, you get first break here. What is your thought on this group with the Lakers, the Thunder, and the Spurs?
I think this group is really fascinating. I do think the Lakers are still, like, the long-term view of them is the most appealing to me. Their next game here is against the Suns on Tuesday. I believe there is some chance that the Suns will have one, if not a couple of their guys back by then. So it's going to be an interesting game for them. And then they host the Thunder in the final game, which is obviously going to be a very tough challenge. So I know this is the thing we don't want to do of talking about stale numbers, but I think positions in the past have me looking at this group and kind of similar to, I think it was East Group B maybe, or maybe East Group A, where I'm like, I kind of want to watch one more game. I think there'll actually be interesting stuff to do before the final day for this group. Potentially if, say the Suns pull off an upset over the Lakers, now this group is just full chaos. So I want to get through one more game's worth of action here in the West Group B. I still love an Anthony Davis ticket. Loved it last week, loved it 2 weeks ago, love it today. But this group, I want to see one more round of games before I make any decisions, in part because there's players who might or might not be coming back we don't even know about. So I want to see that play out. I even the Spurs could very easily be 2-1. This could be a very interesting group in a couple of days.
If the Suns had a few more days, this would change things. Shams has reported that KD might be back next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, that dramatically changes things. The Suns are plus 300 to win the group. That doesn't get me excited with them being 1-1 with a negative point differential.
Yeah.
At -8, that doesn't get me excited. They could absolutely kill the Spurs by 30 points to get point differential where they need it to be. But they're playing the Lakers on Tuesday. They're playing them at home, but they're playing the Lakers on Tuesday. And I just don't know if that's enough time, and I don't want them. If you do like this idea, if you're like, wait, KD could come back, they beat the Lakers, they win the group, all of a sudden the Suns are in the tournament. Devin Booker at 30-1, not bad. Because Joe, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know if the voters would be like, I do not care about group play. All I care about is the knockout games. KD dropped 35, 40, and 35. That's all I needed. I don't know if that matters, or if they're going to be like, KD didn't play any in the group play. I can't give him the tournament MVP if he didn't play in it.
Yeah, it definitely makes it a little bit harder from an analysis perspective to say, because we don't know. There's not really good criteria, and there's not really great priors. We know LeBron won, obviously, but it was winner, really played really well throughout the whole tournament, whatever. The thing that's, I think, fascinating about this group, and I kind of wish Dallas wasn't playing Memphis before, because in the wild card in the West, Dallas is way ahead of everybody, and they can't win the group. Because they lose the tiebreaker to the Warriors. So Dallas is plus 41, and their game is on the last day of group play on December 3rd, and they play the Memphis Grizzlies. I wish we'll know better next week when we record, but there's going to be a parlay scenario that it's going to be like a get in scenario where it's like Dallas to lose by X or like whatever, and then like some other team to win by like a big number, because this group, super talented. The team that I would really want to be looking for, but I think it's going to be kind of hard, would be Oklahoma City, because Oklahoma City, they have this game against the Lakers. It's possible that they could be like 2-1, needing to be 3-1, but they might lose wild card depending on who like advances, because Oklahoma City lost to the Spurs. So, but that would require then San Antonio to be going crazy. So the Spurs, I think, are interesting because they're 20-1. Like, is it totally unreasonable that the Spurs could go 3-1? They have to play Utah, and then they have to play Phoenix, who, with all their injuries, I don't know. Like, but except the problem is that both games are on the road. But I think the 20-1 number intrigues me to a degree anyway. I think the number just feels a little bit long.
I will say in groups of where I'm like, I want to wait a day, I do typically, if anything, want to take the long number, because I think things, I don't want to grab a minus number when I'm like, I don't know what to do this second.
Betting on uncertainty in NBA regular season games, I think, is a really good concept here, because they still are at their core NBA regular season games. At the same time, my big hiccup here with the Thunder is that Lakers game.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, they still don't match up. Even with Hartenstein, they don't match up. I just think Davis is going to smash them.
Yeah.
And it is in LA, and LA has been playing well at home.
Yeah. So
like the Magic and the Nuggets games.
Yeah. So, but I guess that's what it does, open it up a little bit more then for like Phoenix. But it's like we just kind of need to see like who's playing, like who's active. And like Jim said, it's a little bit hard to bet into right now.
Final group, the Warriors have clinched the group. The Mavericks can still get in on the wild card if they beat the Memphis Grizzlies, as Joe said, with a plus 41 point differential. That will be good for anything that you want. So let's take a look. Luka's 22-1. Kyrie's 35-1. I think Kyrie's the better play if you like Dallas. And I don't hate the idea.
Do we have a general timeline for Luka? Would he be back for the Vegas games?
Yeah, he'll be back for the Vegas games for sure. Well, unless he suffers another injury. It's in a month. So, not a month, but in 2 weeks. So, he should be back. But
I like the Kyrie number is interesting then, because they have a decent ceiling as is. And I do think, we always talk about how, big game Kyrie, and especially in like a 1 or 2 game sample that is going to be fresh in people's minds. I do think that's a pretty interesting play right now.
If I bet 30 players 30-1 to win Cup MVP,
hey,
none of them win. and then none of them win. Steph Curry has won the goddamn group and is still plus 700. What is this? What is?
I think there's.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was just saying, I think there's some Warrior skepticism out there right now.
Yeah,
I can't tell if it's deserved or not. They've definitely. I am high on them, but I want to see. I actually am really interested to see how these cup games go, because they've been so good at like rolling out these 10, 11, 12, 13 player deep lineups. I think some people are like, how is this going to translate to the playoffs? So I want to see how it translates to cup play. I think I'm a little higher on them in being able to translate it. But I can see where the hesitation is coming in from people, the market, whatever it may be.
I reject the premise outright. These are not playoff games.
Well,
Indiana,
that's fair.
Like, that's the whole thing here, is like, these are not playoff games. They're somewhere in between a playoff game and a regular season game.
Yeah.
Not just the group play, the ones in Vegas.
Yeah.
Like, it's higher. It's more and a lot of it is like, do you play hard? The Warriors play hard. The Warriors play, and a lot of it for me also, I'm with the skeptics on, I look at this team and I'm just like, yeah, they're playing really well right now. They've been one of the best teams in the NBA so far. But if you're like, where are we going to be in 4 months? Nope. No thanks. I'm not betting Warriors title is what I'm saying. But right now, to ask me who is going to be the best player in Vegas, like in the road, like they'll be at home and then they'll be in Vegas, short flight, short travel, high stakes environment.
Neutrals love Steph Curry in the crowd. That will be if he starts hitting a couple threes, that's going to be a home game basically.
It'll be. I'm telling you right now, it'll be a home game if they're not playing the Lakers.
Yeah. That's the one team.
Okay. 700 is still too long. This should be like Jalen Brunson's the favorite or is co-favorite with Steph at 7-1, and I think that's wrong, Joe.
No, I mean it just they shouldn't be co-favorites when Golden State already advanced. Like it just it's stupid. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like I don't
Isn't it great though? We have like so many markets in the NBA are impossible, and I feel like the Cup, because it's so new and so different, we have the ability to be like, no, this market's just dumb. Like it's just off. Like it doesn't make any sense.
And like honestly too, like depending on how much you can shop it, like I don't think that there's gonna be somebody that loses the Cup and wins MVP, right? Like I think that that's unlikely unless it's the Rockets. But like besides that, right? Like if you can find at your book, like if Golden State has the same number as Curry, like just check it, because like it's possible that they don't.
Yep.
But like it's also possible that they're the same number.
If we know the Warriors are going to the next round, what team are you like, oh, I absolutely do not want Golden State if they face this team?
Maybe Oklahoma City.
Maybe.
Because I don't think that
they match up decently, because it's
they
like
match up
definitely
pretty well. I'm with Joe.
I think the Lakers are not a great draw for them. But I wouldn't be scared. I wouldn't. It's more I just don't like that matchup quite as much.
That's why I bet Anthony Davis at 40-1.
Yeah.
So,
honestly.
I think my thought with Oklahoma City is just that like they're so switchy. Like they're so switchy with so many wings, and like Golden State's like a little small on like from the guard position. So like that would be kind of my concern. But I think I wouldn't be like terrified. Like I think that
would you both agree that the best two, if we were let's say that we were going to do 4 bets for MVP, 2 in the East and 2 in the West. I think the best two are Steph at 7-1, Anthony Davis at 25-1. Is there any disagreement on the West?
No, okay. I think the only other guy you would look at is Shea, but like they're not in a good position at 1-1.
And East, I think the best are Giannis, and I guess Towns.
Yeah, I think Towns. Let's go. That's what I was gonna say is Towns. Yeah,
it's Cat,
right,
for sure. Yeah, because you can't pick any. Like, it's still hard because you're splitting between Brunson and him. But like, I think the whole point of Towns and like the whole thing was like you have to get another dude to play alongside of Brunson, and if Cat isn't that dude, then New York's not winning. Like that's really the way it is, especially when you look at probably who's advancing in the East and then who you might have to play in the West.
This dynamic is interesting for this reason. Then we'll do best bets.
Wait, can I ask one question?
Yes.
After that, before best bets. Sorry, you go.
Magic currently lead group plus 37, but have to play Knicks. Knicks are only plus 14, but play Magic so that they can get by them, which would mean that the teams behind them would have to catch Orlando at plus 37. The most interesting one for me is Cleveland at 1-1 plus 15. It basically comes down to if the Knicks were to lose to the Magic, the Cavs have a very, 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 very good chance of sneaking out and landing into the wild card.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm going to want a Donovan Mitchell ticket. That's where I would want it.
Yeah. I can't shop here. There's one other name. Guess what I'm gonna say here. There's one other name I want you to look at if you got the odds.
Trae Young, I swear to fucking
God.
No,
it's not Trae Young. Jimmy Butler. He's looked good since he's been back. We know in these type of environments, a single game or two. We don't need the first round of the playoffs. Jimmy is Jimmy.
You want to know who I actually want more than I want Jimmy Butler? Tyler Hero.
Oh, Tyler Hero.
Hero is 55-1.
He's 55-1.
What's Butler?
I'm trying to find him. I think
Jimmy's not listed.
I don't think.
Give me the off-screen Jimmy Butler.
I'm not even kidding. I don't see him listed here. Let me look at.
Yeah, he's not listed.
If he pops up at like
not listed,
it's because he was hurt probably to start. Yeah. So if he pops up at like 100-1,
60-1,
was he
60-1?
Oh. I thought it'd be a little longer, to be honest.
I like Tyler.
I would rather, honestly, I'm not kidding, Jim. I think what I would rather do is I would rather bet on Miami to qualify for the final at 22-1 because you damn well know they're going to lose to
Oh,
the
yeah.
West.
Yes.
That's much better. That's much better, Joe.
Yeah.
That's much better.
That's what you
All right.
bet.
All right, this has been great, but we got to move on. Let's do best bets for the Monday's slate. Give me your best bets, Joe Dellera.
All right, I'm going to be on Nikola Jokic over 27.5 points against the New York Knicks and Brandon Ingram over 21.5 points against the Indiana Pacers.
Jim Turvey, your bets.
Jaden Ivey over what I believe is going to be about 21.5 points, and Denny Advia over what I believe is going to be 6.5 rebounds. We annoyingly don't have either, but I believe I will like both. They both worked out last week with my imaginary lines.
I bring him on every week, and every week we talk about all of these complex scenarios involving team outcomes, and every week you guys are like, here are my best bets. No, I'm not taking a side or total.
I do have two leans. I have two leans on sides and money line, so I'll throw those in at the end.
I will help out because I am going to take Pacers Pelicans over as my best bet on the night. That's going to be my best bet. And I have to talk about the Clippers game and kind of the Clippers Celtics game and talk it through. But Pelicans Pacers, I will just do this quickly. I project at 234 versus a 229 in the market as we're recording this. My totals have done very well on overs, which is weird because the last 2 years they were great on unders, but I changed a lot of my modeling this summer and now my overs are much better. The Pacers games at home are 67% to the over. I am ready to get back into Pacers overs. The defense has slipped and the offense is a little bit better, but still not great. And the Pelicans are getting guys back. I love the over in this spot. Joe, let's do Brandon Ingram because that plays into your play on Brandon Ingram's over.
Yeah, so for me with Ingram, I just think it's a great matchup for him against Indiana. I don't think that Indiana really has a specific player that they can really throw at him on a consistent basis. Especially now, like they're playing a little bit more Mathurin, who's not like the most disciplined defender. So the other thing is too, like I know that some of the guys on the Pelicans are listed as, maybe they can play. McCollum being one of them and probably the most relevant in terms of whether or not it affects Ingram. Even DeJounte Murray is also on the report as maybe he can play. The biggest thing to me is that Ingram torched Indiana last year, even when he played alongside of McCollum and even when he was playing a little bit alongside of Zion. His last 4 games, 29, 30, 34, 26 against Indiana. So right now, I think you're getting a line that kind of infers that one or both of those guys are going to be in the event that either one or both are out. This line is just way too short. And then even then, we don't know how limited these guys are going to be. The windup is if they both play, it's entirely possible that it really only aggregates into like one of them playing in terms of their total minutes and uses on the court. So I like Ingram over 21.5 points. I think it's a good spot for him against this Indiana Pacers team that's on a back-to-back today after playing the Washington Wizards.
What's like a good escalator on him?
You probably have to take it. You could probably take 25 and then maybe 30. But the problem is with the 30 is like I don't know if I totally would want 30, even though I think it's a good matchup. And I don't think we have any odds out yet. So I would need to. I'm guessing that 25 points would be 2-1, and then 30 is probably 6-1. And I don't know if I need 6-1. I don't know if I need him to get 30. Like it's just he doesn't get there consistently enough for me. 25, I think I'd be okay with though.
All right, fine.
But if these guys are out, then yeah, like definitely, I think he could definitely get to 30. Like honestly, at that point, like I'm willing to wait. I'm good at buying at 21.5 because I think it's a good number regardless of whether they play. If they don't play, I would wait and like even if I can get 30 at like 4-1. I think it's better because I have a little bit more certainty there. Whereas like I really don't think I would like him to go that high if everybody's in.
Ingram 25 plus and over 228.5 is plus 288 on the same game parlay.
That's not bad. That's not
bad.
But
if you go to 30 though, Joe, it's plus 625.
Maybe just get an alt total too. Then like they're really gonna go.
Don't want to go there. Okay, let's go to Jim and let's do Jaden Ivey 21.5 points on the Is that over or under? Over?
Over. Yep. And actually, I just checked. The play came out. The line came out while we were potting. It's actually 20.5, so I like it even more. Roto Grinders projections has it 23.5, and I have it around there as well. Last game was his first game without Cade, and I was looking at his over in that game, but it was a really bad matchup. It was against the Magic. We talk about how guards against the Magic, that's like the nightmare scenario. Even still, he had a 35% usage rate. He took 16 shots, and he did that in just 27 minutes because it was a bit of a blowout. This is a game where now he gets to play Toronto on the second half of a back-to-back. That is, you go from facing the team that allows the fewest points in the NBA to the team that allows the fifth most. And they only raised the line 1 point, in part because he only had those 16 points in the first game without Cade. Now, Cade is doubtful. I would go ahead and wait to make sure he doesn't play, because this is definitely reliant on Cade being out. Even if they move it another point, obviously I still think it is clearance. My original line was giving 21.5. And if we can get the for sure Cade out, I'm going to love this. Ivy, we've seen all year, one of the things that has made Detroit better is they've been really good about staggering Ivy and Cade. Now, if you just get Cade fully out, it gives Ivy the chance to really have a lot more usage, a lot more looks. Again, those 16 shots in just 27 minutes. If we get him up to 32 minutes or so, it's another couple shots there. So I'm against a defense that really is not nearly the level of an Orlando, which was the first game of his non-Cade run here. So I like Ivy's points here. I'm intrigued by the escalator of this in part because I think the Toronto defense really can get got. So I do like the ceiling on this as well, but I really like the floor because of the usage he's going to get against Toronto on Monday.
I would not expect to see Cade in this game.
Yeah. He's doubtful, and that to me is like a very doubtful.
Like, I would be very surprised if he played in this game, just based off of how the injury and how much they got to be careful with him. Like, there's no reason to pull him back for this game in particular. That just doesn't make any sense. I'm looking up.
While you're doing that, I'll say that ironically, one of my leans is Toronto +5, actually. Even though I like Ivy in this game, and even though it's the second half of back-to-back for Toronto, the no Cade part of it is very big, and this Toronto team covers like their life depended on it. And so to have Detroit, laying 5, that's a pretty big number for me, even with those couple factors in there. So I lean towards the Raptors +5 as one of my spread bets for tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I kind of like Jaden over 20.5.
Well, if we do the reverse correlated one where we go Ivy points, but Toronto to cover, I bet that would be a nice little like +400 maybe.
Yeah, I like
it's
that.
A back-to-back
I like that
for Toronto too. So like, it's gonna be
but like they're young and they're be fine. It's also
the only fear would be Scotty sitting maybe or something. He did get hit in the face late in the game, but I think he was okay.
They also They just played in Cleveland, so it's like a really short trip. It's not like I do factor that stuff in for back-to-backs. Is like, did you take a 6-hour flight or did you take a 2-hour flight?
It's definitely a thing.
Yeah, that
And
matters.
so I want to look this up real quick because I am curious about it. Jaden Ivy, Same Game Parlay. Let's do Ivy over 20.5, and let's take. I have the Raptors favored without Cade.
It's a pretty big number, honestly.
So we could do that and do a nice 475 on Ivy over 20.5 Raptors money line.
Oh, see, that's lower. So what is just the spread? Is it like +300? I feel like they aren't baking in inverse correlation as much as I wanted them to.
Are you surprised that we're not getting great value on?
I think I wonder if it is that the thought process is if Ivy is going, or like the way they're building it, it's like if Ivy's going over, probably means Cade's out. Like
Like, they may sniff it out a little bit.
What, Jim? What do you think about our run it back Tim Hardaway Jr. under 2.5 boards?
Now that Duren is back, the Timmy rebound unders are just free again.
It's back.
I might get it one. I will not give this one out as the official Same Game Parlay of buckets tonight, but I will say that Raptors -1.5 Ivy over 20.5 is plus 525. That has, like you guys talked about, it intrigues me. Yeah, that one intrigues me in a very special place. So I will say that. Joe Dellera, Jokic over 27.5 points as your Knicks take on the Denver Nuggets. I'll be at that game tomorrow.
Yeah, so I think this is a brutal spot for New York. They're in the middle of this Western Conference road trip. You just played an elevation against Utah. Now you're going to Denver and playing an elevation again. Towns is on the report. I don't know if he's going to play. In the event that he does play, he fouls a lot. So that's definitely a concern that I have. And then if he doesn't play and it's Jericho Sims and Huck Porty, that is just like Jokic's going to destroy them. He's going to absolutely destroy them. So 27.5 points to me, I think is just too low. He's averaging 30.3 points per game this season. New York plays slow, and they still are actually doing a decent job. Like, despite all the stats, they're doing a decent job of limiting points in the paint. I think part of it has to do with the pace. But still, like, Jokic has just been way too good. He's scoring the basketball with way too much ease. And to me, because of the way New York's personnel is and the way that, Denver, they will attack teams' weaknesses. Like, they'll do it like right away too. And they know Cat is a guy that gets into foul trouble. And when Cat's not on the floor, it affects the Knicks offense as well. So it's kind of like a double whammy there if you go attack him. And if he doesn't foul you, then it probably means that the interior defense is going to be pretty light. So at 27.5, I just think it's a little bit too light, especially for considering the fact that he's averaging over 30 points a game this season. So given that, I'll grab Jokic to go over 27.5 points in the spot.
Yeah, I stand corrected. Here's the same game. The Nuggets are one of the worst teams in the league in points in the paint allowed. They have been absolutely wretched at defending on the interior. The reason is, in pick and roll situations, Jokic plays up. I've talked about this for years. Jokic plays up because he's better actually moving his feet and getting deflections and things like that than he is in playing drop. So they're back to playing that more aggressively. Without Aaron Gordon in particular, they were bad with Aaron, but without Aaron Gordon in particular, they have nobody to play backline defense to contest at the rim. Michael Porter Jr. can't physically make the rotation and doesn't have great defensive instincts. Like, Mike's doing great on rebounds and is been an okay defender. It's not his strength. Peyton Watson, young guy, still figuring out those kinds of timing, not great at those type of things. And the guards in particular, Jamal Murray, not going to do that. Christian Brown really doesn't operate in that kind of space, and he's usually guarding the primary weapon. So I've been betting the opponent overs for anybody who is even not the top guy, but the second guys on points in the paint versus the Nuggets. I took Gafford the other night because Lively was starting, so I took Gafford, and that hit by early fourth. Josh Hart is third on this list behind Brunson and Towns, and that to me feels like a very good opportunity here. So Jokic over 27.5 points, Josh Hart over 13.5 points. This totals 233.5. And I think that is high. I have this projected at 225. If we throw the under in, that's 7-1.
That gets spicy because now you are getting some inverse correlation there.
Yes. That's going to be that is the same game parlay for buckets tonight. I will tail Joe on over 27.5, and I will also play Josh Hart over 13.5. I will play all three of these legs individually, but I am going to parlay those together because there's a game script, I think, where that happens. And it involves Towns not playing, but we'll see what happens. All right. Jim, Denny Avia, 6.5 rebounds. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, you said that, and I was talking, so I didn't hear it. Sorry. Should we just cut this?
Yeah. Jim, you're on Denny Avdia, 6.5 rebounds.
Yeah, Portland's kind of a fun team. I've been finding myself watching them a fair amount this year. They're going to be without Donovan Clingan on Monday. And they're most likely going to be without DeAndre Ayton as well, which leaves them a little bit short in terms of rebounding. Clingan actually got 19 of their rebounds last game. Now, Robert Williams should be back in the lineup for them, but Advia was able to grab 10 rebounds last game. And this is now a faster paced team. They're going up against the Grizzlies. He got a lot more minutes with the way the rotation shook out last game. So his rebound rate really pops when Ayton and Clingan are off the court. And even when he's sharing the court with Robert Williams, he still has a much better rebound rate than his kind of flat rate for the season. So it's kind of a weird, funky little bet. But I kind of am intrigued by Portland in general on Monday. My guy Duop Reith, I think he might get some minutes and get some run. I doubt we'll get any props for him, but if you're playing any DFS, he could be an interesting player there as well. So it's a strange one, but Denny Avdija rebounds was something that was popping to me as a potential overlook if we get that 6.5 and it's not too juicy.
I don't understand. I have not liked this Portland team. They're pretty decent right now.
Yeah.
We'll see if it holds.
Yeah.
But they're pretty decent right now. And Avdija, I think, actually might be a huge part of that.
Can I throw in a couple there's one more lean player prop and one more lean money line. So I'll lean with the money line first. I lean towards Dallas. Even with no Luka, I'd have Dallas favored by a couple points. And that's even before I get hot takey on, Ewing theory, Luka maybe not being worth as much as we would theoretically make him. And then I got to shout out LaMelo because he's doing absolutely crazy stuff. Joe and I were texting about this after the last game where he had two points at the end of the first quarter and managed to reach a 50 burger because his usage right now with Miles Bridges and then now Grant Williams off the court as well, it's going to be historically unprecedented. His usage with those two guys off the court this year is almost 50%. It's 47.4%. It's just bananas. Now it's a terrible matchup. It's against the Magic. We said at the beginning of the show we don't really play guard overs against the Magic. It's 30.5. That's also a really high number. But I'm really intrigued because the dude just is going to have the ball constantly with not even a yellow light, not even it's a green light forever. So I'm intrigued by that, and more so, it's just going to be absurd to watch if you're looking to watch a game. He's just going to have the ball in his hands the entire game.
The thing that's insane too, his turnover line is only 4.5. He only had 4 last game.
It's
I think
impressive.
maybe this is the game that you could go over because it's Orlando.
Yeah.
And maybe that's how you bet into the usage, but it's crazy because he's turning the ball over significantly, 4.2 per game, but that's still not that crazy when you think about how much he has the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
I want to go back. The Hawks are this open Hawks -1.5, and it's 3 now. It's Hawks -3.
Oh, that smells like someone knows something. Actually, I'm almost a little bit more scared now. That smells like someone knows something.
Nope. I will say that if this holds tomorrow and we get to 15 minutes in and it's Kyrie and everybody's gonna Derek Lively, everybody's good to go. Then because I make this Mavericks -7 after adjusting for the back-to-back. Really quickly, I just want to kind of note this one. This is just a cap, not even a bet, because I can't figure it out. Clippers are 9.5 tomorrow on the back-to-back versus Boston. Boston's double home. East teams at home on when they're home for a back-to-back versus West teams. So they're at home twice. They're going up against a Western Conference team. They're 24-17 against the spread since 2023. But they're only 6-6 when that opponent is also on a back-to-back. Okay, small sample, fine, whatever. Since 2013, Western Conference road dogs on a back-to-back. So I've been harping on this all year. Whenever you're running a trend, go look at how it does East versus West because you will notice stark differences. Western Conference road dogs who are on a double road back-to-back, this is a huge sample size. Not huge. It's a big sample size. 128, 97, and 3 for 57% ATS. Power rating, if you give normal home court, I make this 9. And so it's a no play. The problem is if you follow Sean Grand, who does radio for the Celtics, he's noted the wild differentials in point differential and net rating for the Celtics at home versus on the road. Because this season, and I haven't adjusted these numbers for the very close win, by the way, over the Minnesota Timberwolves on Sunday. But the Boston Celtics, very surprisingly and weirdly, they're +5 at home in point differential and +9.9 overall. So they're 4.6 points worse in point differential at home versus on the road. I don't know what to do with that, but there's like some cool numbers. I would just tell you that based off of the trends, this is largely, if you don't buy into this sample size for Boston, I think Boston's probably a pretty good play. I lean a little bit more towards the Clippers are extremely annoying on the road. Boston's a little overrated in the market, and they're not great at home. So I think I have a very strong lean towards the Clippers. So I'm going to stay away because of all those factors. That does it for buckets. Lots of stuff for you to chew on there. We'll be back on tomorrow. We'll break down the cup games. We'll give you best bets, all that and more. Follow Jim Turvey at Roto Grinders and in the Action Network app at Turvey Bets. Follow Joe Dellera at Joe Dellera. Check out Joe's podcast, the Cash That podcast. Phenomenal pod. If you listen to the show, you're going to like it. Go listen to the Cash That podcast. We'll see you guys again next time. Thanks for joining us. Till then, let's get buckets.